learning now Tanya Perek Memalev, page 112. And we are about 7 lines from the bottom, in the middle of the line of Azai. But before that, the Alter Rebbe here gave 3 different meditations to accomplish the following. To accomplish that your Torah and mitzvahs and your Avas Hashem isn't predicated on Ava, but rather on Yira and Kabbalah Soil. That's the Nakuda of this chapter. One Nakuda. That even the good things that we do, and even the holy things that we do, must be predicated on fear of God, or for God, as we know it to be, Kabbalah Soil Malchus Shemayim. And if it's missing that element, as good as it feels and as holy as it is, there's still an iota of self there, ego, and it's not pure. That's the Nakuda of this chapter, which is, in a way, not contradictory, but different than what we learned from chapters 35 through 40, which is the importance of a kavanah, right? An ava and yira, that your davening, your learning should be inspiring. So how do you reconcile the two? And this has been discussed here and before, and we discussed it, that it's no contradiction, although sometimes it feels like a contradiction, as Chaim Zev and I discussed, the reconciliation between independence, b'shvili nivra ha'olam, right? Chazal say, the world was created for you, for each one of you, for each one of us, and at the same time, we should have bittul, humility, and it's all about Hashem. How do you reconcile the two? So this also was discussed, and it's part of the not just the theme here, but the theme of the entire Tanya. On one hand, the Alter Rebbe believes in us, right? He believes in us. He says you're a potential Beinani. He doesn't look at us like a terrible person. It's funny. Shabbos, I was in shul, and there was a sheva, part of a sheva brachas, and so the grandfather of the chassan is a satmar, and so I was talking to him. So something came up, and he said, the world is a paskutzve world. The word paskutzve, it's Yiddish or Polish, I don't know, but we use it in Yiddish. Paskutzve means disgusting. Vulgar. There's such a word in Yiddish. Paskutzverai. This is like vulgar, disgusting. This is not just bad, but it's disgusting. So as I finished talking, he made this comment to me, and I didn't say anything because it was a middle, it was bein aliyah l'aliyah, and I just I didn't want to talk more. So I was thinking, Lubavitch, Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, Chassidus, Bechlal, the world is a beautiful world. There's problems. There's problems. Life, if you don't want problems, don't ask God not to send you here, okay? But to conclude that it's a paskutzva world, and there's the schmutz of the internet, and there's the Reim, Prikus oil that led to the disaster on Simchas Torah and on Shabbos, sinning with gays and lesbians and drugs infested, another Haight Ashbury or the Grateful Dead concert in 1969. It's along the lines. It's not 2023, but there are remnants of that there, right? It's a paskutzva world. It's terrible. You learn Tanya. If a person asks you, what does the Alter Rebbe want with Tanya? The Alter Rebbe says that every person has a potential to be a Beinani. That's what the Tanya is about. It means you can be your best. So right there, the direction of Tanya is completely different than the mindset of the Satmar Chassid, which is the mindset of other Jews, many Jews, from Jews, Hasidic Jews, Litvish Jews. And Tanya is not Lubavitch. Tanya is for every Jew. So when a person goes through this Tanya and studies it well, like we're trying to study it slowly and well, relatively speaking, you're going to come out having a positive attitude to the world. You're not going to see Isser after you finish Tanya is not going to see those ladies who nudge him and want him to do these unkosher things and whatever else. You'll have Rahmanas on them. You'll have mercy on them. You'll find good within them. Your whole attitude changes. Why? Because the whole attitude of you're wrong and I'm right and I'm better and all that. If you learn a piece of Tanya, and if you don't walk away saying I'm a nothing, then you have to relearn the Sefer. Then you haven't even started to learn the Sefer. The Sefer shows you how little we are and yet how high we can become. So in this vein, this chapter in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, in chapter 41, says that the Iker is Kabbalah soil. But not just Kabbalah soil when it fits the motive, the narrative. Kabbalah soil when it doesn't fit the narrative. When is that? When I want to approach God with the I, some sense of I, and then I say, no, it's not because of I, it's because of He, with a capital H, who wants me to be I. That's what I told Chaim Zev in our discussion. It's not that Hashem shuns self-esteem. Hashem wants self-esteem. You must have self-esteem. You must not be a shmata. You must stand up for your rights when you have people who talk against you. You must say it the way it is. I told you, right? I was walking in the airport last week, and my back was hurting me, and I was holding on to a wheelchair type of thing, schlepping my bag and holding on. So, it was a very long walk in the Delta at JFK from 15 minutes walking, and it hurt me. So I was using it. A woman's walking on the rail there, and she turns to me. She says, "I work for the airlines. I'm an employee. That's illegal." So I say to her, "Am I bothering you?" I say to her, "You see, it's my back's hurting me. I know it. I wouldn't use a wheelchair because it's for other people." And she just says, "Well, that's not right." So I said, "Go tell your employee. Go call the police on me." The people want to start up with you. They start up. Now, in principle, she might be right, but she didn't take into consideration, and her facial expression was so demonstrative of, someone who's picking a fight. Why? Because this is conspicuous Judaism. This black hat with a white beard, it's unkempt, is conspicuous Judaism, Hasidic Judaism. So there's issues. And there's issues all around, and they're never going to go away. Anyone that thinks they're going to go away is dreaming and is going to be so disappointed. Okay, Chavre, whether it's here in America, you know what he says about the anti-Semitism in America, whether it's here in America or in Eretz Yisrael or all over, it's been this way. It's just more revealed now, but I'm telling you, it was this way in 1960s when I was mugged with my little sister walking, and a fellow mugged us, It's been around, okay? It's been around, and that's the nature of the beast, and that's also part of the cheshbon. If you don't, of what Tanya teaches us, you have Kabbalah soil, you accept, even in the good things, the ways of Hashem, and you know that your job is to overcome, to not let the lady who picks on you, get in the way and do what you need to. And then if it means stand up, like I did, stand up. In a respectful way. You're not a shmata. So the idea of Kabbalah soil is not a contradiction to independence. And it's a very important point what you mentioned, Chaim Zev, because there are people, that's why I'm speaking about it now in public, because a lot of people who are Ovdei Hashem and learn Torah, they conclude, like, your question, in other words, if I'm gonna become an Oved Hashem and I'm gonna have Kabbalah soil, I have to keep my mouth shut and be a nebuch. Totally not. Look at Lubavitcher Rebbe. Look at Howard Rebbe. This man, when he had to say something, he was fire. And if you knew him and you studied his writings and you watched him, he was such a humble person. Both in his walking and his and everything else was so much of humility. But when he had to speak up on behalf of Yiddishkeit, on behalf of something, he let you have it. And he wasn't scared of anyone, whether they became his opponents, and he had plenty of opponents, and he just did what he had to, and he looked further. And that's the lesson of the Tanya, that when you have Kabbalah soil, you're going to be on the right track. So now the Alter Rebbe says, how do I develop this Kabbalah soil? So he gave us 3 meditations. One, that God stands over you. Number 2, which is maybe the most important one, and the details about that, which is on the bottom of 111 going on to 112, and that's part of the 12 lines that we're supposed to memorize and to meditate on every day. We should do it. It's a healthy meditation and helpful. Number 2, before you put on tefillin, very interesting here. It speaks about the talis of tefillin. It speaks about the talis of tefillin, what you should meditate on before you put talis of tefillin on, and then he speaks about a mezuzah. So he gives us very concrete thoughts, and I don't want to repeat it again because we learned it and we have to go on. But I do point out to you that you might want to take another look at it. It's very, very practical what you should think about before you put talis of tefillin on. He says here, and the idea of the mezuzah as well. So let's go now to the bottom of 112. Azai. So the line begins with the word ke'inyin soim tosim. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the bottom, in the middle of the line. Vazai. If after all of the meditation, guess what? He says, you weren't impacted. You weren't impacted. You learn and you understand. But if you ask yourself, is bizgalut liba in the revealed heart? Do I feel it? No. Loy tipel olav. You don't have this Kabbalah soil. Says the Alter Rebbe, this is also very important. Nevertheless, since you accepted the yoke of God upon yourself, and you draw down God's awe in a revealed way, at least in your mind, okay? So in your heart, Avram, in your heart, you don't have that heart palpitation. But in your mind, you understand this is the right thing. Says the Alter Rebbe, the Kabbalah zuhi amitis. This, Kabbalah means receiving, but this reception, this idea is true, belishum sufik, without a doubt. Sharei hu teva nefoshes kol Yisrael, because it's the nature of all souls. Shalei limdair, loi rimdair b'melech HaKodesh Yisborech, not to rebel against God. Here the Alter Rebbe throws in a very interesting caveat. He says, it's the nature of the neshama. You hear that? It's the nature of our neshama not to rebel against God. So therefore, Harei HaTorah Shalom, the Torah that you study, the mitzvah the mitzvah you do, machbas Kabbalah zu, because of accepting this yoke, and because God drew down in your mind at least this awe, nikrois b'shem avodah shlema. This is called complete avodah, not half-baked avodah. This is complete avodah. So listen, Chevra, it's not bizgalus liboy, it's not revealed heart palpitations for God, but because of your mind, it resonates. The Kabbalah soil resonates in the mind, and it's also the nature of the soul, the nature to not rebel against God by nature because it's in the Neshama. Those 2 items are adequate to consider this avodah of yours avodah shlema. That's a big chiddush, because you would think it's not an avodah shlema. It's not a complete avodah. It's a half-baked avodah. Let's continue. Next page, top of Muzayin. Kechol avodah zo'eved. This is a complete avodah like all other types of service by a servant, la'adonai to his master, or malkai to his king. Stop. Mashen kain, conversely, im leim du makayim mitzvahs bi'ava levada. If you only learn Torah and you only fulfill the mitzvahs with love, and you don't use Kabbalah soil, and your love is because you want to cleave to him, it's not called Avodas Ha'eved. It's a nice trip, but it's not the service of a servant. So the question is, Chaim Zev, why must it be Avodas Ha'eved? What's wrong with feeling a love to God and serving Him? Why must I have Avodah? So the Alter Rebbe says very important words. V'haTorah Omra. He says the Torah establishes the criteria for what is Avodah and what is not Avodah. And what does the Torah say? V'avadetem es Hashem Elokeichem. It doesn't say v'yohavtem. You shall serve God. And also it says v'oises tavodah, him you shall serve, which goes to B'zoyer Pashas Bahar. Kahai Torah, the Zohar uses the following mashal example. Like an ox, the yoven alei oil bekatmisa. First you put a yoke on it, begin so that la'afke minei tavla alma, so that goodness should come out for the world. Now, why do you put a muzzle and a yoke on the ox and all of that? Whatever they shouldn't pasture and shouldn't do damage to other properties, right? But the Zohar says that that's not the only reason. The reason is also that good should come out of it. In other words, when an ox will plow a field and it's doing it because the yoke is on it, so it follows, it gives so much greater amount of produce coming about from schlepping the plow. Hochinami, says the Zohar, it's tarech lebarnash. So too, man must lekabla alei el malchus shemayim, to accept upon himself the yoke of God. Bekatmisa, the first thing, before anything else, you have to have Kabbalah soil. And if not, if he doesn't do that, the Kedusha won't rest on man. And he brings the source in Zohar. Call Adam. Oh, stop. So what do we see from the Zohar? The Alter Rebbe is saying now the following. First of all, what's the difference briefly between Ava and Yira? Ava is the self-loving. I love. Yira, what's Yira? Fear. Why do you fear something? Because the self is annulled. In other words, I fear someone or something because they're greater or that's awesome. So I take a small position. I humble myself. I crush myself. So the notion of Ava versus the notion of Yira are diametrically opposed. Although we put them together in one sentence, now the Alter Rebbe in this chapter is differentiating between the two. And the Alter Rebbe is saying that why isn't Ava enough, adequate, to be a Avadatem? I mean, this is an amazing point, and this is a chiddush. You tell this to anyone who's ben Torah, they'll flip out. Avadatem, you serve Hashem with Ava, and you're not an Ovid. You're not Avadatem. That's what it says here in Tanya. Avadatem is Avodas Eved, not Avodas Ava. Hillel, you hear what that means? Why? So what's the explanation? The explanation is because Ava is a continuation of self, a continuation of I. So Chaim Zev, this also answers your question. When do we talk about the negativity of the yesh, of the I, when it comes just from the Ava perspective? I love, I want. When you talk about Yira, Kabbalah soil, there's no I. The I is being swallowed. Why? Because if you fear him. It is greater than you. He is awesome. So in other words, I'm scared. I'm going into myself. I am reducing the self. So the notion of Yira is the element that is the pathway for Avadatim. So take the servant, right? The servant serves a master. What is the position of the servant? Is the servant saying, I'm doing what my master wants because I love my master, or because I am a nothing compared to my master, a real servant? I'm a nothing. I've given myself away completely to my master. So the position and mindset of the servant is bittul, yira. No I, only he. That's vavadatim. Vavadatim is only he, only the Eibishter. So the Alter Rebbe says here that that's why Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim is the necessary ingredient for Vavadatim. And as he brings from the Zohar, I mean, the Alter Rebbe says it, but he brings support from the Zohar. Where the Zohar says, and this is the additional point that he brings from the Zohar, not only is it beneficial that the ox puts a yoke on so that it doesn't, and a muzzle and everything else, that it doesn't damage property, but even for the good things that come out, it's because of the ox. Because of the ox. What is the Alter Rebbe saying with that? What's the chiddush? That even for asay toiv, not just for sur meirah. In other words, someone will say, I'll be like a servant, I'll serve Hashem, I'll do what God wants when it comes to not doing what I'm not supposed to, sur meirah. What about when it comes to asay toiv? When it comes to asay toiv, I don't need that at Kabbalah soil. I need more the attraction, the ava. I love you so much, God. Says the Alter Rebbe, no. Says the Zohar, no. The Zohar says that the purpose of the yoke on the ox is also, look at the Zohar, la'afka minei tav la'alma, for there to be good coming to the world, meaning for asay toiv. Your asay toiv becomes really toiv, really genuine and not egotistical and not selfish, if it's predicated on the Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim. That's the chiddush of this chapter. And it's a big chiddush, because it's not conventional thinking. And as the Alter Rebbe says, V'hatoira, why does he have to, Rabbi Yoel explained once, V'hatoira Amra, like we don't know the pasuk V'avadatem is in the Torah. Why does the Alter Rebbe have to add the words V'hatoira Amra? It's the fourth line on page Nun Zayin, the first two words. Because he's emphasizing, if Torah says this is the way it is, that's the way it is. God establishes the ground rules. You understand? In Hebrew, who is Koveya? Who sets the tone? Not Chaim Dalfin, and not Isser, and not us, and not a Rebbe. It set the tone by Hashem. V'hatoira Omra. Whatever Hashem, the Torah, sets to be the ground rules are the ground rules. What does it say in the Torah? V'avadatem. It's Hashem Elokeichem. Oiseh Toivoidu. To be a servant. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, I know it says that, but how do I understand it? And more so, seemingly, when it comes to asay toiv, you don't need vavadatem. You need the ava. Says the Alter Rebbe, no. Because the Zohar HaKodesh says that the avodah of the ox, the yoke, the avodah of Kabbalah soil is helpful, not only for preventing from doing evil, like eating in other people's fields, ox, doing the stealing and eating, but the purpose is for good things to come out of it. That's asay toiv. In other words, your asay toiv, when predicated on vavadatem, is a selfless asay toiv. And that's what we're looking for. In everything we do, the Torah says, vavadatem. There should be the element of bittul. That's the nakud over here. Now the Alter Rebbe says, quoting already that piece of Raya Mehem, the Zohar, he says, it says there, Shekol Adam, every person, tzarech liyas b'shtei b'chinos u'madregas. Every person must have two levels. Ve'hein, b'chinas evet. One is the level of a servant, and number two, b'chinas bein. So the Alter Rebbe is asking, it's a rhetorical question himself. I just finished telling you how important and necessary it is the avodah of Eved. Not Bain. Bain is the Ava, the natural love of a son to a father. And in the Zohar it says you need both levels. So the Alter Rebbe now retorts, but after Yesh Bain Shugam Keneved, there is a level where a person is a Bain, but he's a son. He's at the level of son, but he's a son who's also a Neved. So he rejects that argument. Yeah. The Alter Rebbe says, in order to get to that level, that you're a Bain, you're a son, you're the son of God, and you have that loving feeling of a son to a father to a son, and simultaneously you feel like a servant. Oh, he says that's a high level. There is such an experience, but that comes from what we call Yiril or supernal Yira, which means that's like a level for tzaddikim, where they're able to, bring together two opposites in one, Kidu El Yodim, as it's known to those that study Kabbalah, etc. But practically, and the Alter Rebbe is saying for us in Tanya, for Beinani, for ordinary average people, you're not a Bain that's an Eved. And if you're emphasizing Bain, there's still some I left, and therefore you need to begin with Ava. And that's why with Yira. That's why he said in the beginning of chapter 41, Reishis ho avoida, the beginning of service. I emphasized at the time, and I repeat now, the end of avoida is to also experience the love for God predicated on the Yira. But in the beginning, you need to have the Yira. And this is so true in, just for a moment, in our Avodas Hashem and with family and everything else. If you go into a situation and it's lacking the yesod, the foundation of Kabbalah soil, the tree is not going to grow good. It's not. And you see this daily. That's why it's so important to have the foundation be solid. What does it mean, Kabbalah soil? And the articulation of that is, in practical ways, and never lose sight of the Kabbalah soil. So therefore, sometimes when a person will say, well, I was just having a conversation now with an English major, interviewed her for an upcoming book, and we were talking, and so I asked her, she's a Chabad girl who went to Stern College, and we're talking about this idea of, going to college and, how did she as a Chabadnik growing up reconcile it. And we're talking about this whole idea. And it was a wonderful conversation, and she's a very, very special person. But at the end of the day, this Kabbalah soil, and Kabbalah soil it's a very hard thing. It's the hardest thing to accept. And not accept like a fool, accept like a smart. In other words, to put yourself aside and come to the recognition, Hashem is Echad, V'Torah Omra, V'Avadetem. That takes a lot of avodah. It takes a lot of bittul, And people say, oh, you have a Rebbe, this Rebbe, that Rebbe. It's so easy for you. Go to your Rebbe, he tells you what to do, and you do. Anyone who's a deep chassid, who's a thinking chassid, knows that it's not so easy. It's not, my Rebbe tells me, I know it's going to be good, I hope it's going to be good, and I'm going to do it. It's a lot deeper. It's a lot deeper. That although I think one way, I come to a place within myself that I put aside my thinking for Torah thinking. Now, the truth is that's the way a Yid, any Yid, even without a Rebbe, should feel. But those that have a Rebbe, Hasidim, that's the idea. And these people were and are intelligent people. A man like Rabbi Steinsaltz, Olav Shalom, is a very, very smart person, a gifted person. And when he was able in certain things to put aside his thinking to the Rebbe's thinking. Don't think it was easy. It was not easy, okay? But you come to a place when, if you recognize that this is a living Torah, this is an embodiment of Torah, and so then you augment the Kabbalah soil, but everything is Kabbalah soil. So that's why the Alter Rebbe spends so much time here speaking, and boy, do we have quite a bit left in this chapter, but it's a hard avodah. If it's not something. I wasn't from. I became from. They told me how to put on tefillin and mezuzah, and I followed and all that. And no. Yesterday I met someone who's married for 35 years. Shtickle friend. He tells me he's divorced. Says he's not happy. Living in with a roommate. And I know him a little bit, and I'm thinking, what happened here? 35 years marriage, I don't know the details. I don't want to know the details. But I just want to bring out in the Kudah. If you believe in Kiddushin, that it's sanctioned by God, and by the Bracha, and Chuppah, and Kiddushin, you're not going to just live like a roommate. Somehow you're going to make it a good, exciting marriage till the end. You have to work on it. Yes, and there are times when the spouse, whoever it is, doesn't cooperate, and the Torah says there's place for divorce. We know that. And he told me that no mashpia, no rav told him not to get divorced, because he is a good guy. I know him, and he's a frum guy. And so we understand that. But at the same time, you have to do that avodah, those 35 years. And usually, when you do the avodah, the 35 years, there's fire there, even 35 years later. Whether it means going on a vacation together, whether it means learning together, joking together, whatever it takes. So this idea of avodah isn't just, davening and learning. It's mamish negeya to all of life. And at the end of the day this idea of I'm leaving him or her because I found someone better is not avodah. If you believe in the Kiddushin sanctioned by God, again, we know there's divorce, and we know there's the legitimate divorce, Torah divorce. We understand that. But what should be the perspective and mindset to begin with of a Jew is that God sanctioned this marriage. And if you don't feel that from day one, then it's a big problem. Then in a way, it's a mekach tois. I told you the story. I end with the story. The great chassid at Tzemach Tzedek, his name was Rashbatz. So he was davening, and in came his wife and pulled his talis off and said already, it's 2-3 o'clock, the kids are home, they need you home, come home. And this was a giant of a Jew. And his friend, who was also there, Shmuel Ber Bar Yisrael, saw his wife do that. So he said, after she walked out, he said over to him, he said, Rashbatz, he said, obviously, you and her made a mistake in your marriage. If she doesn't understand that you're about davening with your talis over your head Shabbos to 2 o'clock, and she doesn't appreciate that, then you should have never married her. That's your life. That's your lifeline. It's your breathing. It's your air. So you know what he said? He said, you're right. In logic, you're right. But guess what? The Tzemach Tzedek gave me Chuppah and Kiddushin. And if the Rebbes made a bracha, a Chuppah and Kiddushin, and if we divorce, I'm making his blessing in vain, and that I won't do. Now, what's the message? It's not about the Tzemach Tzedek. It's about if God sanctioned the marriage, even though logically it's a mistake, she don't get it, and I don't get her. Her world is her world, my world, and we're not talking to each other. And I'll tell you, as a second generation Holocaust, child, I saw this. But what I also saw is that the bond and union you couldn't break. You could scream, you could argue, you could curse, but the bond and union, it never broke. Commitment. So it's time. It's good from time to time. We're all older. We're not young children and not teenagers and young marrieds. We must remember these nekudas in marriage and in life, and share them with our children and grandchildren. And someone says to me, "Oh, our generation, today's generation, they're much better off the way they date and the way they marry." Oh, really? I disagree 1,000,000%. Because I look at my class and my friends, no one's divorced. Everyone seems to be in a good, healthy, happy marriage. No? Can you guys today say that half of the class of your class is divorced? Could you say that? No, you can't say that. So who's doing better? Us old folks, old fogies from the 60s and 70s? Or you guys from 2000 to 2020s? Who's better off at the end of the day? Bottom line is, and we had children and grandchildren, and the daters continue. And I think we need to, in an upbeat way, in a smart way, point this out to the new generation, that the ways of old are the ways of the new if done right, with all the enhancements. Chevra, hope you didn't mind my drasha a little bit today. Sei gesund. See everyone tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care.